Now for Leviticus 15, dealing with the uncleanness of men, laws concerning the uncleanness of men. And here's a quick summary from Adam Clark's notes. It begins with the mode of cleansing, of uncleanness, accidental and casual. Laws concerning the uncleanness of women are then noted, and the mode of cleansing there. What's being talked about with this uncleanness? Well, it's the discharge of men and women. Chapter 15 deals with the dangers of a man's discharge, namely from the sexual organ, the genitalia, in essence from an STD. And they believe that gonorrhea was the primary disease being noted right here. Not only must he be isolated, but his bed, saddle, and saliva are also considered unclean. Now, we'll come back to this matter here in just a bit because it deals with a couple of other issues and with the women as well. But what's the ceremony that took place upon them being pronounced cleansed from this initial discharge? And when he that hath an issue, verse 13, and when he that hath an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be cleansed. Now, running water is very important. It wasn't stagnant. Many would have believed that stagnant water would have been fine back then because they didn't know about the bacteria that could have built up, at least not as much as we do today. That's actually a very recent discovery as far as our modern medicine is concerned. Even back in the days of the Civil War, they were unaware of the diseases that came from bacteria. So they didn't wear gloves. They didn't have any clean water. They would mix up everything with the blood, and it just was the dirtiest thing. You would often die from surgery. So for 7 days the man's supposed to be isolated, and on the 8th day he shall take to himself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord for his issue. Which probably denotes how common that this probably was. This would not have been an expensive sacrifice to bring. But then we go on in verses 16 and 17, and we read this: And if a man's seed of copulation go out from him, if he has an emission of semen come out from his body, then he shall wash all his flesh in water, and be unclean until the evening. And every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water, and be unclean until the evening. The woman also, with whom shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water, and be unclean until the evening. This goes for husbands and wives. The fact that even normal, Guzik noted, the fact that even normal and permitted sexual activity made a man ceremonially unclean was not God's condemnation of sex. It was a powerful way to prevent an aspect of sexual and spiritual corruption common in the ancient world. Ritual prostitution, often practiced at a sacred place. See, the pagans, those in whom were Satan worshippers, knowingly or unknowingly. The other nations, they would all incorporate sex into their rituals of dedications to their gods. But this was a really clear, defined line to say, no, you are not to bring that to the Lord. Under this principle of the law of Moses, any emission of semen was ceremonially unclean and could not be associated with the working of the tabernacle or temple. But verse 19 begins to deal with the issue of women. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue and her flesh be blood, this would have been monthly menstruation, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening. Now, this may seem rather harsh to modern women of today, but back then, I bet that they had a different view. Rooker commented like this: the laws, the one noted, would also provide the woman a break from housework, caring for children, and marital relations. All of this presented a powerful and consistent message. It said that there is something broken and inherently impure in us, even in what comes from us normally. It also said that there is a significant aspect of our brokenness and impurity that is in some way connected to our sexuality. Morgan commented, a careful perusal of these requirements reminds us that the procreative faculties are all underneath the curse. How we make babies, even after they have children, we're so cursed in this realm that every aspect of our flesh is just considered unclean, impure, not worthy of God, are all underneath the curse, whether the exercise of such faculties be natural or unnatural. In the sight of a God of absolute holiness, they are tainted with sin. This is an entire notion in which one can really implant within their brain and say, look, heaven has got to just be absolutely wonderful. Not just wonderful, but pure, clean. Women, you don't like cleaning. Men, you don't like cleaning. There'll be none of that in heaven. You know, it's just a totally bizarre place. I tell everyone, paintings do not do justice to the true heaven. That's just our idea, but it's also coming from a fallen nature, this idea. So it's completely foreign. Even whenever you think of Christ on a throne or the Father transcendent in some way or its streets of gold, you're nowhere near it. It has not entered into the eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard, nor has entered into the heart of man the things in which God has prepared for those in whom love him, my friends. No man has ever imagined as far as being like us. No man has ever imagined even what heaven is truly like. It's truly something to be totally excited about. It brings me right back, one last note, it brings me right back to whenever Jesus sends the 70 disciples out, and a few of them come back and they say, Lord, we even have command over demons. Even these invisible, beings we have authority over in your name. He says, rejoice not over that. That's a small thing. He says, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. Rejoice because you will be there forever. You see, he knows fully well how great and much better that it is than this place. Now, before I play the text and audio portion, I'm just going to say that the very same ceremony had to be performed, that with either 2 pigeons or turtle doves, had to be performed after the woman was also considered cleansed as well.
Chapter 15. And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When any man hath a running issue out of his flesh, because of his issue he is unclean, and this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue, or his flesh be stopped from his issue, it is his uncleanness. Every bed whereon he lieth that hath the issue is unclean, and everything whereon he sitteth shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth his bed shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that sitteth on anything whereon he sat that hath the issue shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that toucheth the flesh of him that hath the issue shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And if he that hath the issue spit upon him that is clean, then he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And what saddle soever he rideth upon that hath the issue shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth anything that was unto him shall be unclean until the even. And he that beareth any of those things shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whomsoever he toucheth that hath the issue, and hath not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And the vessel of earth that he toucheth, which hath the issue, shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when he that hath an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord for his issue. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water, and be unclean until the even. And every garment, and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation, shall be washed with water, and be unclean until the even. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water, and be unclean until the even. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whosoever toucheth anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And if it be on her bed, or on anything whereon she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation, and whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean, as the uncleanness of her separation. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtles, or 2 young pigeons, and bring them unto the priest, to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her before the Lord for the issue of her uncleanness. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and of him whose seed goeth from him, and is defiled therewith, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that hath an issue, of the man and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean.